God. You know, there are a lot of conversations between theists and atheists today, and they both use the word God, but the trouble is, as Hart points out, there's just a massive equivocation. The same words being used, but in very different senses. It's not so much that Christopher Hitchens and Richard Dawkins are seriously engaging Thomas Aquinas. It's rather that though they use the same word, namely God, they really have no idea what Aquinas means when he uses the word God. Now, here's the thing. The new atheists, to a person, believe that God is some reality in the world, or alongside the world, or above the world. God is the supreme instance, if you want, of the category being. All kinds of beings around. God's the supreme instance of the category or genus of being. Well, that's exactly what God is not, according to Thomas Aquinas. Thomas couldn't be clearer. He says that God is not in any genus. Even that most generic of genera, namely being. You say, well, isn't God at least a type of being? And Thomas's beguiling answer is, no, he's not. God's not a thing or an individual. Rather, God is, in Thomas's pithy Latin, ipsum esse subsistens, which means the subsistent act of to be itself. God is not an item within the world. See, all the new atheists believe that, some version of it. I call it, of course, the Yeti theory of God. Some people say there is a Yeti, Bigfoot. Some say there isn't. Let's go find out. Some believe it, some don't. That's precisely what God is not, some item within nature, within the world. Rather, God is that great ocean of existence from which the world in its entirety comes. Not something in the world, but the condition for the possibility of the world. That's God. You know, one way to get at this, too, is to distinguish between God, capital G, and the gods. Go back to the old, Greek and Roman myths, or myths of any culture, really. Gods. The gods are supreme instances of, let's say, the human type. So look at the great Greek and Roman gods. They're like superhumans, who they are immortal, and they have, super minds and super skills and powers. But they are finally beings in the world, living up on Mount Olympus, or down in the sea, or up in the sky, or something. They're supreme instances of the human or the natural. They're not, strictly speaking, supernatural. They exist as denizens within nature. This is why we can say legitimately that the sciences, the modern sciences, have indeed eliminated the gods. So with our scientific equipment and our great scientific spirit, we've explored the heavens, and we explored mountaintops and the depths of the ocean, and indeed we haven't found supreme beings around. More to it, the modern physical sciences have managed to explain most physical phenomena. We don't have to appeal to extraneous causes of supernatural divine causes. That's true if by divine you mean the gods. The sciences have indeed eliminated the gods. But here's Hart's point, and a point I want to underscore. The sciences in principle cannot eliminate God, because God is not an item within the natural world. God is not some event or phenomena that can be examined by the physical sciences. He's not the subject or object of an experiment. Even in principle, the sciences can't eliminate God. They can't address the question of God. That's why the famous story of the Russian cosmonaut going up into the heavens and saying, well, I've looked all around and there's no God. Well, he was speaking so much nonsense. It was simply a category error. If he had changed the capital G to a small g, fair enough. I'm up in the sky and there are no gods. Great, that's fine. Science can do that. But it can't even begin to address the question of God. See, and that's why, too, you hear the new atheists say, like Matt will say, well, with the advance of the sciences, religion retreats to ever smaller bits of intellectual turf. No, it does not, because this is not a zero-sum game. This is not a battle between equals. It's addressing reality at entirely different levels. The advance of the sciences can never threaten authentic religion. It's also why it's so silly for people to say, produce evidence for God. See, it's the Yeti theory again. So, well, is there evidence? Well, there's a big footprint and there's some sign that the Bigfoot might be around. Well, you don't produce evidence like that for the creator of the entire universe.